Welcome to Studio Stories, where we learn directly from visionary educators who unleash passion and purpose in the classroom and beyond. I'm your host, Misty Patterson. I'm a teacher turned best-selling author and consultant. I've spent over 2 decades learning how to be a responsive educator, and my journey continues with you today and our special guest, Nawal Casiano, founder of NQC Literacy. Nawal started her women-owned education consulting firm to support leaders and teachers in all things literacy. Based in Chicago, NQC works with pre-K to grade 8 schools and districts through tailored professional development, individualized teacher coaching, and long-term planning for powerful learning experiences in literacy instruction. Their work is grounded in equity, access, and multiculturalism. Nawal, I met you when we were on a collaboration call, and I think I invited you to be on the show as soon as you uttered the phrase, "Children are the curriculum." I've always believed in the same notion, and I can't wait to hear how you unpack children are the curriculum in your own practice. So if that's okay with you, let's dig right in. What does that phrase mean to you, and how did you come to understand that children are the curriculum?
Thank you so much for having me. I believe that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and I know that that sounds like a buzzword or a buzz phrase, but the truth is no literacy instruction can be the same year after year. And when it becomes when it becomes kind of repetitive, or we don't make changes based on the kids in front of us, I believe that it becomes stale and we're not doing the kids a service. And so I think that the kids lead. I think that the kids lead everything that we do. And so that means offering a wide variety of choice in every component of literacy instruction.
And I think about, curriculum, just that word alone, is such a suitcase. There's so many things that live inside that word. And depending on where you are in the world, that word carries different meanings. I know we're talking about the phrase children are the curriculum, but let's just take a moment to unzip the curriculum suitcase. And when you hear that word, what are a couple things that come to mind for you, or how might you define it?
So, Misty, I often get hired, and I'm sure you do too, to, maybe the school already has something that's in place. Maybe the teachers already have something mandated by the state or by the city or by like some governing entity to provide some kind of cohesion across the school. And so often that looks like or maybe there was an influx of funding and a packaged program of some kind was purchased in order to, so for teachers not to reinvent the wheel or for teachers not to create from scratch. And so I think that there always needs to be some kind of balance there. And so the kids in front of us need to help us decide what components and what parts of that potential package we include in our everyday practice. And so when I think about our kids or the curriculum, that phrase, I think that the kids lead with their curiosities, and that leads us as adults to determine or facilitate their learning.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I was talking with another educator who works in literacy as well. She's a consultant locally. And she was talking about the importance of looking down at the child's work. Instead of, looking up at the next sort of shiny thing to do that, could be in, whether it's, technically curriculum or something that we're finding on Pinterest, etc. There's just such a plethora of exciting things for us to do with kids. And I think, a lot of us love planning. We love, we're great party planners. We want the kids to be excited, and we can find so many ideas to do that. It's a different thing when we're centering the child's experience in a particular discipline or across disciplines, in your case, literacy. So I'm hearing a little bit about the centering maybe is different.
Yes, that's so interesting because I like to say stop, look, and listen.
Aha.
Which is the same, I think, sentiment that just pause what you're doing because anecdotally we can learn so much about the classroom and about what kids are engaged and interested in, and that will help inform what happens next. And it doesn't mean that we don't sometimes look up and determine what or have a long-term plan or backwards design, but it does mean that our kids' curiosities can lead us, right?
Yeah.
So I did bring some artifacts, some interesting things that I was just thinking about. I've been in an interesting world of homeschooling my child a little bit. One of them, I have four young children,
Yeah.
and one of them is on the cusp of kindergarten in the United States. So she's pre-K kindergarten. She's 5 years old, and we've been talking a lot about our environment. And her teacher has been talking about in virtual environment a lot about what is around you. Look out the window, observation, sensory, like what do you see, what do you notice, what do you hear. And so that type of work, I think, can happen in the classroom at all times by allowing kids to then go find books at the library that are about the environment. So these are things that she has seen, right? Nest. And so, or we're going on a hike for Father's Day coming up with my husband. Or that's a wordless picture book. We recently went to the beach at Lake Michigan, right, which is where we live in Chicago, Illinois, and learning a little bit about the access to beach historically in the U.S. But those were led, like that content was led by my daughter, right? It was by her own curiosities. And so what I mean by the kids are the curriculum, that can be infused in every component of literacy as well.
So I love that you're giving us a whole bunch of tangible things. You've given us, I think there was 3 or 4 picture books, so I'll definitely have to ask you for those names and the ISBN number so I can include that, in some communication to our listeners. But you're also giving us a tangible way into curriculum because content sometimes is king. And I think what I'm hearing you say is your child's interest in this case, or children, if you're looking at a group of learners, when they come to us being curious about a particular idea or a particular event or content, the beach, a place, maybe it is, that's a starting point for us to engage in that literacy instruction. And you just used books as one way to support. Um, Before we travel a little bit more into the how, I'd like to talk about the why this is important. Um, because hopefully listeners now are like, okay, I've got some tangible, I've got some picture books, we all love those. But I think, and I know you do too, the purpose behind what we do is so important because I think, especially if what we're suggesting feels outside the realm of normal in our particular context, if we're looking across the hall or to other parents and we see something that's different, that's maybe a little bit more dominant in terms of what we think of as curriculum and school and literacy instruction, it can be hard to try out some of these ideas like children are the curriculum if what we're seeing is almost in opposition to that. And I think purpose is something, if we can get really clear and aligned with that, it can be the fuel to the fire. So, in your perspective, why is that notion of children being the curriculum so front and center to you? Why are you passionate about that?
Well, I just don't believe that there is a purpose to assignments or tasks in the classroom that are not authentically useful outside classroom walls.
Yeah.
And so if we are asking students to do something because it's in service to something that we've done forever, or traditionally this is what our class has done, or then to me it feels really inauthentic, and it feels like we're filling in the blanks, and it feels like we're paper pushers, and there's no creativity in the design, and there's no interest for the kids in front of us. And so that's kind of what my litmus test is. If our kids are the curriculum, why am I asking them to do this? And then I'm really transparent with students. This is very useful because anytime you pick up a fiction book, you can do these things. This is really useful because anytime you're curious about this topic, you may search in these places. Because what that does is teach them beyond, I do not believe, and I don't think you do either, that school is the only place that we learn. The building is, of course, not the only place we learn. And so how can we give students the strategies that will support their information gathering, their curiosities, their kind of thinking through and conversation and collaboration with others outside of our buildings?
Totally. And so, what I'm hearing you say there is that share your why. Get clear on your why and then share your why transparently with the students in front of you. I think that is just, again, a perfect segue to talking about a how or a call to action. What could we do if we haven't had the privilege of having you and your team in our school and our presence to learn from you on how you find literacy instruction in authentic, child-friendly, child-centered ways? And we're in our own context that may be very different. What's one or two things that we could try out?
So when I first started, I started talking about choice, yeah, and I think that sometimes teachers fear choice because then every student is doing something different, or researching, or looking up, or reading about something different. And I think that that's the beauty, that texture, that messy kind of, we can share what we're learning and right in different ways and also different topics. And so what I suggest is that teachers directly ask students, like literally sit down with them, either with a survey, a form, or with a Google Doc, or with a Google form, or an actual piece of paper. What are you interested in? What do you want to look up, research, learn more about? This can be like within some parameters, within like a unit. What animal do you want to learn about? What environment do you want to learn about? But let the kids lead, and then you resource it. Then you, as the teacher, facilitate the learning around it. Just like I did with with Ezzy for learning about her environment.
That is very straightforward and very doable. It's not a lot of extra work. It's so simple. You're calling us to ask our students what they are interested in. What do you want to learn about? And you're suggesting that we can put constraints around that as well. It's not everything, it's within the area of focus that we're mandated to do if we're working in a mandated curriculum. I love that.
And I mean, I think that that's where we have the ability to be thoughtful about representation, right? And so, like, if it's going to be about a particular scientist, let's say, or we're going to research about a particular mathematician, then we can be really thoughtful to make sure that representation is across the board, so that we're kind of like picking and choosing. So yeah, there are parameters. It doesn't need to be a complete free-for-all, but I think literally listening to the children, stopping, looking, and listening to what the children want and are interested in will drive interest, authenticity, and it makes them the curriculum.
Totally. Oh, what a great closing statement. That is so powerful. And the part about representation is something that is so important. And I know, you really advocate for that. And it's important to me as well. I think of it as a guiding principle, actually, of this notion of abundance. We need to look at things from multiple perspectives. And you mentioned not only do we ask, that's maybe step one, ask your children, what are you interested in learning about the link? And then you said you resource it. So you can invite the children to bring in materials that they have access to, and you're also providing access to an abundance of materials that can stretch their thinking around that as well. Nudge it a little bit beyond maybe the initial interest that they're sharing.
I love that. When you think about abundance, when we're doing these resources, I'll share these with you too, Misty, that, we do columns of resources so that it's almost as if they have a piece of poetry about potentially that environment. They have a music, a piece of a song about that environment. They also have a person, so that it feels really cross-curricular as well. I mean, there are so many ways to resource that so that it feels kind of robust and layered and textured and all these beautiful things that we know make really fun, sticky learning.
Well, we're going to have you back on the show, I think, to talk about textured resources. That's our next phrase, I think, Nawal. We have to do that. Well, I'm so happy that you joined us, and I want to make our call to action really clear to anybody listening. Please make children the curriculum. Start by asking what are they interested in, and then finding abundant resources to support that interest. And share your stories, right? We're better together. And Naval and I really want to hear from you. How will children as the curriculum live out in your practice? please tag us on Twitter and on Instagram. We want to cheer you on from the pop-up studio. Keep unleashing passion and purpose in the classroom and beyond, my friends. We are here in your corner.
Yay.
Yay!